Well, we're going to start on this rudder, and I've got my drawing. I went and redid from what I originally thought before. I wanted to do it, redid it again to where the center piece, instead of 2 1/4 inches laminated for the center part and then having to taper it down, I went with a single 1/4 inch sheet in the middle as the very middle longest part of the cord, and I'm going to cut it off. I used a 12.5 inch NACA 0008 foil so that the end of the, say at 12 inches, I come up across with a straight vertical edge that I can taper in a little bit with my plane if I want to. Be able to use the plies on the end to center myself when I plane it down. If I do, I may just leave it blunt at the end. It's not going to, be a certain amount of turbulent drag at the end of it here, but I'm not going to worry about that. So I've got my first piece cut out in here, and I marked up to where the next part's going to go. So now I'm going to go ahead, and I've got the second tier up. If you look at the drawings here, you can see the full one piece, and then the next one down will be this piece that I have to cut out, and you can see how it has a little bit of cut out there. So let me go ahead and cut that out. I've got it marked on this, so I'll just take my scissors and trim it down and then lay that on my plywood as my template, and then I'll come back as soon as I get that one done. Okay, I have my parts cut out. I've got the big center section that'll go in the middle, and then I've got the matching pairs that will go on either side of it to give me my full 3/4 inch thickness on the rudder, and then the shape. I've got some other little pieces of 1/8 inch plywood I'm going to fill in here just so I don't have to use so much wood-filled epoxy or easy fill it. And then I got a little strip that'll go along in here too that shows up on the, let's see, shows up on the cross section. Where we got here? Right up in here. This darker, is it darker? Yeah. The darker spots here. There's a 2 inch wide section here, and there's about 1 inch or so, or 5/8 up on the front here. A 2 inch on the top, and then another little piece on the end here. And then that'll give me my shape. So let me go ahead and cut those. I'll go ahead and cut those out and apply them after I get these first 3 pieces lined up and epoxied together. No time like the present to go ahead and do this. It's not that cold out, so I'm going to put on the epoxy and go ahead and layer this in. So put a skin coat on the first part and let that settle in. Don't squeeze it too thin like you're putting a surface coat. You want a little bit left in for the squeeze, and also to be absorbed into the wood. I've got about a 3/4 ounce mix here, half and 1/4 on the part A and part B. Go ahead and set this off to the side. Let me come back when I get this buttered up and put together. Well, I got it epoxied in place, and I have 2 little cups here. One is about, like I said, maybe 1 ounce. I was wrong. I said 3/4. Probably 1 ounce, and this one here is 3/4 of an ounce. So that was about what it took to lather up both sides with 2 coats of epoxy for it to absorb into the wood and also leave something on the surface to adhere to each other with. So I'll leave that clamped up tonight, and I'll flip it over and put on the mirror part on the other side, and then I'll come back and put in the little 1/8 inch plywood strips in here in order to fill it up a little bit so I'm not using so much wood-filled epoxy. And I was also I was able to use my clamp that I didn't think I'd ever use again with the that big long one I had with the bar in it. It makes a nice distance clamp for clamping down the back sides of layers when you're, you know, you can't get along. One thing you want to make certain is that when you clamp these up to epoxy them, that you have them clamped to something that's straight, so that the rudder doesn't take a bend, because once it's epoxied together, you're not going to straighten it out again. So I've got a nice straight board, or on the bench here is good and straight, and I've got that clamped to it, so I know that these two pieces will be epoxied together level. When I add the next one on, we'll just make it even stronger. So I'll come back when this is done. We'll flip it over and add on the little strips. I have the final the shape of the rudder glued to epoxy it up. I've got my 3 layers of 1/4 inch ply, and now I'm dropping on my little 1/8 inch pieces. I have done in the past, not video, but written about making the dagger boards and the rudders out of all 1/8 inch plywood, so that you can stack it up, and so you have very little fairing in to do. It's basically just fill in the little steps with frosting and you're ready to go. So what I'm going to do now off camera is I'm going to go ahead and glue the rest of these little pieces in here, and then it'll be filled in with epoxy, or with easy fill it in through here, and then I've got another little piece here for the thickness of the cord. I'll show you this a little better when it gets all done and it's not falling around. And I've got another little filler back in here to put in, so let me go ahead and get that done, and we'll get back to it. Something like this gives you a chance to use all your clamps, and then on the wooden clamps here, make certain that you put some visqueen underneath of it. I got some little strips that I cut out that'll fold around so I can protect both sides. I had to look underneath, and I had one of them was up next in a puddle of epoxy, so I would have had to probably cut it loose, but it's all set. So the next thing, tomorrow I will take all the clamps off, clean up the stuff. It probably wouldn't have, it would have been a good idea if I would have had a clean piece of visqueen in here, because I got some residue stuck to it, but that'll all clean off, and we'll sand it down and get it prepped for putting on the fairing and shaping the edges for the final painting. So, as you can see, I've got the rudder pieces all epoxied together, and I've done some preliminary shaping with my little low-angle plane and a rasp. I'll do some more sanding, but then I'll come around to put in the the slow fair or the easy fill. Most likely, thin as it is, I'll use the slow fair on this. But now I have it set in place again. I got some clamps to hold in the pintles onto the rudder, and I wanted to make certain, remember, that everything slides up, that these guys, the points are in line, so that everything is hunky-dory, and it slides up and out fine. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in some holes, some 3/16 holes. And usually I'll come in from both sides, just so I can meet in the middle. Kind of like if you're going to have those cartoons of the tunnels or the railroad tracks meeting, and the guys are all scratching their head why they didn't come out. I usually try to do that. If there's any area that needs to be a little larger than around where the hole's at, I want it to be in the middle of the rudder and not come in and then find out that I have to poke it around because I didn't come in straight and line up with the hole. I wound up here someplace. So I got that one in. Let me go ahead and drill all the rest of them in and come back to see whether or not it was a success. Sometimes these things will slip, and then it's like, oh, okay, you got to do something to fix it. So let's see how good this comes out. It's fairly smooth. I think I got more problems with this pintle up here, but boat needs to make a little bit of noise. And it comes on and off. Actually, it's nicer like to have a little bit of tension on it so it doesn't want to float away from you. The problem I had with the O&P, I need to rebuild its rudder because it's not heavy enough. I find that if I let go of the helm and I'm trying in the middle of a tack or whatever, the weight of the tiller is so much it'll throw it over, and next thing I know I'm going in a big circle, and I don't want to do that. So I added some more size and weight to this thing to bring it back to center. So I'm done with that. Next I'm going to go weigh this thing, see how big she really is. I have my balance beam hooked up to the ceiling, and it's 4 to 21.5 is the pivot point. My scale only goes up to like 110 pounds, and these are a little bit more than that, so I have to figure out a ratio. And then I've got it set over. The balance point is almost dead on to what the beam is. It's about probably 5 inches ahead of the aft end of the daggerboard trunk. So pull this thing down and get her balanced out. I'm showing 20 pounds on my scale. And since I've already done this, so I don't want to look like a math fool, it comes out to 132 pounds on, if you take 4 is to 21.5 equals 20 to X. So if you've done your proportion math in Algebra 101, you know what I'm talking about. So 132 pounds. I don't feel bad about that for a 12-foot boat. That's reasonable. Too big for car topping, but it'd be a real, you put it on a little trailer behind your little tiny car and you won't even know it's back there. Trailer will weigh more than the boat will. So let me go ahead and set this back down and off into something else. I've been collecting my information on the title page for the instructions. So the length is 11 foot 11.5 inches. The beam is 56 inches overall. That's outside gunnel to outside gunnel. The hull width is about an inch less than that, so it's probably around 54 overall there. The depth at the gunnels to the center line is 16.25, and the weight now I can say is 132, and the transom is a 33. I got to go figure out now what the Coast Guard says for a maximum horsepower outboard is. Even though I would probably never use an outboard in this, and I doubt if I would use anything bigger than that little tiny Honda. Was it 2 horsepower? 5 would be overkill. 2 would be nice on this if you're just going to plunk around. So, later.